Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to CCA's Community Energy Innovation webinar series. I'm Leora Vestal, CCA's Director of Communications. Also here as part of the webinar team is Sandra McCafferty, CCA Administrative Coordinator. We're excited to bring you today's webisode focusing on the steps California communities are taking to drive investment in EV charging infrastructure. But first, a few words about our webinar series sponsor, Calpine Energy Solutions. Calpine partners with community choice energy programs throughout California, providing customer and data management, call center, risk reporting, and other key services. An early supporter of CCA in California, Calpine now counts 17 aggregators as clients. The company's sponsorship funding will go directly to charities around the state that are providing relief to those most impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. Leading today's webinar will be Jesse Denver, Transportation, Electrification, and Community Resilience Program Manager at East Bay Community Energy, and Kylan Rathjen, Special Advisor, Zero Emission Vehicle Policy at the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, aka GO-Biz. EBCE's Community Choice Aggregation program launched in 2018 and now serves about 1.5 million customers in Alameda County. GO-Biz leads the state of California's job growth, economic development, and business assistance efforts, and has a team specifically dedicated to cultivating opportunities to accelerate zero-emission vehicle market growth. Just a few housekeeping items. Today's webinar is being recorded and all participants will be in listen-only mode. Please use the Q&A button on your screen to type in questions. A Q&A with the speakers will follow after the presentations. Take it away, Kylan.
Hi, everyone. So it's great to speak with you all here today. So as we said already, my name is Kylan Rathjen. I work at the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development in our Zero Emission Vehicle Market Development team. So our team works to speed up and hasten the zero emission vehicle technology across California. Hydrogen and refueling, and also EV charging stations. So today we're particularly going to be talking about EV charging. We have a lot of great information to talk about. Next slide, please. So first, we need to speak about the COVID-19 crisis, for why all of us are speaking from our homes today instead of being in person. So we work a lot with local governments, particularly my team within GO-Biz, to support zero emission vehicle readiness. And this has been a tremendous challenge for local governments with changes to staff availability, lack of funds. This has been very hard. And we work with local governments, and there's been a great degree of variation amongst how this is affecting local governments. So what we are here to say in GO-Biz is that we understand we are really pushing for states and counties to adopt ordinances and local measures like that. So we understand that that might take some time right now. And we're here to provide assistance for our team. And we also have guidance from the Governor's Office about how to respond to COVID-19. And the GO-Biz team has a great set of resources. You see the URL here to learn about how businesses can use federal and state programs to stay afloat during these difficult times. But there is an important to make right now is that as the state's economy is not doing as well as it could, as it's being challenged by this COVID-19 crisis, zero emission vehicles present an opportunity to rebuild better than we've ever had before. I live in the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles, but I'm not in Sacramento, and the air has never been cleaner. And this is a tremendous opportunity to rebuild better than we've ever had before with great paying jobs in the clean energy sector. So there's numerous zero emission charging stations that are being permitted right now, and many are being delayed. So, there's projects awaiting permits that can put Californians back to work. So we want to talk about permit streamlining as a mechanism to achieve economic recovery in California. So, if you spend time into making it easier to get a permit for a charging station, it can bring back the economy in your state and keep that clean air that we like to see during these difficult times. So next slide, please. So what are electric vehicle charging stations? So I know folks on this call probably know about, who's who, what's what. And sorry, the DCF got cut off in the corner there, but essentially level 1, you have, plug in any outlet, you get 4 to 5 miles of charge. Level 2, you can install this in your home or have it exist in a lot of public locations across California. You'll get 12 to 70 miles. And then also DC fast charge. So these are your superchargers. This will get you a charge much faster within, a few minutes to an hour or so. So you can, have road trips and charge fairly quickly if you live in a multi-unit dwelling. Next slide, please. So California has an ambitious set of goals in order to achieve zero emission vehicle penetration throughout the state. So we have a carbon neutrality goal of 2045 and having carbon free electricity by 2040. There's also a goal of having 1.5 million zero emission vehicles on the road by 2025 and 5 million ZEVs by 2030. You read down the list, 250,000 charging stations by 2025 and 200 hydrogen refueling stations by 2025. So these are all goals created by the Brown administration, but they've been reaffirmed by Gavin Newsom in his recent executive order. Slide, please.
Hey, Kylan, it's Leora. Can you hear me?
Sure, yes.
Your mic is going in and out a little bit. I don't know if we can hear you. I'm wondering if there's any adjustment you can make. It might be your internet connection.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I'm not sure how to change that. I know we could call in. I can leave and come right back to see if that works.
No, I think let's continue. I just thought there might be a quick fix, but it's fine. We can hear you.
Okay, sure. I'll speak louder too. As many of you know, one of the large challenges with zero emission vehicles is, we have to get them adopted as quickly as possible because it's one of the most stubborn areas of CO2 emission reduction. We've been very successful in the electric power space about reducing emissions with our generation, but transportation is frustratingly remaining high and won't go down. So zero emission vehicles presents a tremendous opportunity to work on reducing our emissions in California. Next slide, please. So ZEVs are a part of the solutions, but they need to be a part of the solution faster, and that's where permit streamlining comes in. So a Volvo study said that the number 2 concern about electric vehicles is that there's a low charging station availability. Many folks don't know about how to, charge up your car, to do it at home. So if more of these facilities were across our state, it would be an adoption. So California, in spite of all of our tremendous goals, we have one of the highest costs in the country for installing charging stations. And fortunately, we have AB 1236, which is the state streamlining law, which essentially says, you need to make it as easy as possible to install a charging station. There's been uneven interpretation across the state. So certain jurisdictions have adopted this measure and others haven't. So that's, one of the big issues GO-Biz is focusing on, and we'll make sure to talk about that a lot further. So if we can implement AB 1236 statewide, permitting will not be a challenge and the cost of permitting will go down over time. Next slide, please. So why is this important? So new jobs, cleaner air, and importantly, it's less time and staff time at the city and county level. We say this is a win-win across the board. It's better for the charging station companies. It's better for the residents in your community because, they have cleaner air and more access to charging. But at the city and staff level, they have more time to work on other projects. And, there's a law in the books since 2015, AB 1236. So we really think that this is a great narrative for everyone to save time and save money and cleaner air, and will create jobs in the process. So the Rocky Mountain Institute has indicated that installing a charger is 3 to 5 times the cost of the charger itself. And what they found is that the greatest area for cost reduction with charging stations is the soft costs, so essentially permitting. So if we can figure out how to bring down the soft costs, i.e. permitting, we can tremendously reduce the costs and achieve the goals that the state has with EV charging. So one of the big charging station companies in California, Electrify America, has indicated that the average permitting time in our state exceeds the national average by 70%. Stations need to be redesigned 30% more frequently, and ultimately it's 22% more expensive than the rest of the United States. So despite our goals, we have a lot of challenges at the local level. And then we've also indicated that California's goals, in order to achieve them, we need to install 30 charging stations at 30 sites every working day over the next 10 years. And we're far below that. So we have a lot of challenges, but clearly from working with individual cities across California, we can streamline this process and make things better. So next slide, please. So as part of Governor Brown's executive order and in general, the need to support local government adoption is that we've created a guidebook to support local governments for EV readiness. So these are some of the sections. I'm going to just do a lightning go through right now, and then we're happy to send out the guidebook after the webinar. So next slide, please. So first, planning and site selection. So the state has done a lot to advance building codes to prepare our cities for zero emission vehicles. So we've done a lot already, but we're encouraging cities and counties to take an extra step, the so-called REACH codes, to increase the amount of EV ready parking spaces that may be needed. And our office is currently working of cataloging all those building codes and REACH codes and putting them on our website so that cities can pick and choose for which ones they would be interested in going forward. And we have a lot of information in our guidebook. Secondly, one of the big challenges with installing charging stations is, does it count as a parking spot? And if it doesn't count as a parking spot, does that affect parking minimums? Fortunately, AB 1236, the state's streamlining law, and the recently passed AB 1100 says that a charging spot counts as a parking spot. So that should never delay a particular charging project because you have that just legislation to say it counts as a parking spot. And then we have this table here that shows you can, in Sacramento County, get better bang for your buck, where if you install a charging station, you 2 parking spots. So that's a great best practice we've encouraged cities and counties to adopt. Third, we just want to make sure that any EV readiness efforts are integrated into climate action plans for cities. Next slide, please. Permitting. So this is really the heart and soul of what we want to talk about here today, and is a big part of our guidebook. And essentially, AB 1236, the state of California streamlining law, develops a process for which you're supposed to permit a charging station. It all starts with a streamlining ordinance, and we have plenty of these example ordinances on our website. You have a checklist online, which provides a list of requirements for what an applicant might need for a charging station, and everything is done online. So you have an online application. That leads to a permit submittal, and it's funneled through the building department. The planning department should be removed as much as possible from the process. So the building department will couple all problems with the charger, any deficiency notices, so that the charging station company can address them all at once. There's resubmittal, and it's a streamlined process, and then you get approval to build. So it's a quick, easy process that's been outlawed by this law of what to do. Next slide, please. So we've surveyed the industry and really developed a set of best practices for how cities and counties should be looking at installing charging stations, how long it should take. From application submittal to complete response should be about 5 days. The real meat right here is that from complete response to approval to build should take 15 days. From construction, completion notice to inspection should take 5 days. Ideally, same day would be great in each of these scenarios, but 15 days, what's seen as being acceptable, and we're encouraging cities to set up these timelines. Next slide, please. Accessibility. So this is one really big issue that comes up with charging station developers. So the American Disabilities Act doesn't provide direct guidance for how charging stations should be accessible, but the state of California is the first in the nation to provide compliance specificity. So you see this table here shows how many spots you need for each charging station. And California has been a leader in this area to develop accessibility and making charging stations accessible for all. Ultimately, though, it comes down to a local official's interpretation of the ADA. So you see a tremendous amount of variation from city to city on whether or not a site's accessible. What we've indicated is that the Division of State Architect can walk through a defensible code path for any city or county. So if you're having any questions or issues with accessibility, Derek Shaw from the DSA, he can speak with you, and that contact information is in the guidebook. So next slide, please. We also talk about interconnection and connecting to the grid, working with utilities. Most of these utilities up here are the 5 largest in the state. They have the designated interconnection teams that you can work with. And our big advice is work with utilities as soon as possible. The faster you work with them, the faster the approval process works for interconnection. So, as soon as you want to install a project, talk to your utility. Next slide, please. We also talk about construction, commissioning, and operations, and the pending weights and so it's now gone forward, the weights and measure certification. So it just ensures that EV drivers are paying the correct amount for a kilowatt dispense of electricity. And we also talk about signage and how CalTrans will pay for your signage if your charging station is accessible throughout the day. So that's available as well. Next slide, please. So we've released our guidebook in July of last year, but the living version of our map exists within the electric vehicle charging station permit streamlining map. So we've gone ahead and evaluated every city and county in California to see if they've complied with AB 1236. So green, you're partially streamlined, yellow, you're partially streamlined, green, you're fully streamlined, and red is you're not streamlined. So you can see the state here. We have a lot of work to do, but there's been some great examples in certain parts of California. Next slide, please. So you can click on an individual jurisdiction in a city to see whether or not they're meeting all the particular criteria of AB 1236. And I encourage you all to go to our website to check out the map to see if your community is streamlined. Next slide, please. So what are some common problems that face cities and charging station companies? So aesthetics are often seen as a big concern. You need to have additional landscaping, a colored ballard, public art in order to get a charger. There's zoning concerns, it goes to planning commissions, things like that delay projects. Like I said before, parking counts are an issue. You affect a parking count by installing a charging station. That there's no electronic signature. You have to go into City Hall to get a permit. So all of these issues are not AB 1236 compliant. So all of these should be addressed with the law on the books. City or county should have passed an ordinance that ensures that these aren't happening. And again, also ADA interpretations are a challenge. And one of the largest that we've seen is that a lot of people don't know about AB 1236. The state of California law of permit streamlining is not well known. So we really hope this webinar offers an opportunity to teach folks about the law, and my contact information will be available if folks have any questions at the end. Next slide, please. So this is just a common set of problems. You got building review, planning review, ADA compliance issues, comments coming from different divisions within a city government, and it delays the projects, up to a year. And it should be, again, a 15-day streamlined process. Next slide, please. So what we're hoping is that all the issues with a charging station that may pop up are funneled through the building department, and those can be addressed, easily by a charging station so that we can have a quick and easy review to get a charger installed. Next slide, please. So what are the criteria we're looking at here? So number one, you need a streamlining ordinance. We have examples online. The city or county is supposed to adopt that. We also have you need to have a checklist that says what a city or county is required from a charging station company to get that permit. There should be an administrative review of a charging station, so it can be done at the building level. Again, and the review is focused on health and safety. So you're not looking at aesthetics, parking counts. It's just about health and safety concerns. Next slide, please. Again, you need to have electronic signature so that a charging station company doesn't need to fly across the country to get a permit. Everything should be done online. Particularly with COVID-19, this has become very important to ensure our safety. So online is the way to go. Also that a charging station permit is not subject to association approval. So ensuring that, a condo board can't shut down a charging station permit. Seventh, which we've spoken about already, is that there's one complete deficiency notice. So all the problems with a charging station permit would be compiled together so that they could be addressed all at once. And number 8, in our map, you get a bonus point if you have a timeline for approval. So, again, that 15-day having a timeline is seen as ideal. Next slide, please. So how is the state doing? So we've evaluated just about every city and county in California, and it indicated that only 17% of cities and counties have streamlined. So that means they passed an ordinance, they passed a checklist. The other, 80+% of California has not. It's partially or not streamlined. And in many cases, we hear about how, it's the charging station company that is, submitting faulty applications. It's on their end. And in many cases, that's true. But our evaluation is just looking at ordinances and checklists. And that just shows you here that the majority of California has not gone ahead and done what's required by the law. Next slide, please. So as a comparison to Alameda County, because we're going to be speaking to Jesse right after my presentation, Alameda County has been one of the best in California in terms of their streamlining efforts. Jesse's done a tremendous job of encouraging her cities and counties to adopt ordinances and checklists. So you see 73% of Alameda County is streamlined. So they're much more further ahead in the process, bringing jobs and investment into their communities. Next slide, please. So because of this, Jesse Denver, who's going to be speaking next, our office issues awards to local leaders that work on ZEV readiness issues. And Jesse received the first ZEV award. East Bay Community Energy has done so much in this area. Jesse and Zach and her team have done a great work. So we want to acknowledge them and encourage other folks across California to also be heroes in the permit streamlining space, because it's a overlooked and not necessarily the sexiest topic, but permit streamlining is critical to get the chargers installed as fast as we can. Next slide, please. So CALeVIP, I know I'm running a little short on time here, but why is this important is that this is the state's incentive funding for charging stations. So this is rolled out on a county and regional level. You see here like Fresno County, Southern California, Sacramento County, they've received CALeVIP programs to address the missing gaps in their service territories for chargers that they don't have. So like Fresno County, you see it's level 2, which is provided funding. SoCal, it's DC fast chargers. So each project can be tailored to the needs of your community. So these are the existing CALeVIP projects. Next slide, please. So you see in 2020, we have Sonoma Coast, Silicon Valley, San Diego will be having new EV charging CALeVIP programs. And in 2021, we have letters of intents for a new CALeVIP programs. So what's important for these 2021 applicants is that permit streamlining is going to be factored into the process. We're making sure that the CEC is that when they invest their dollars in a community, they get the best bang for their buck, and it's going to be invested quickly. There's not delays with permitting that existed in previous CALeVIP projects. So the point we're trying to get across here is that you can invest time into coming compliant with AB 1236. You'll bring dollars into your community, and that's a real great thing to support job development. So we're encouraging all folks to become AB 1236 compliant, to bring dollars in your community. And we've encouraged you to reach out to Brian Fauble from the Energy Commission if you have any particular CALeVIP questions. Next slide, please. So how to become green on the map? It's a fairly simple, easy process. You pass an ordinance. CalBO has great examples, the California Building Officials website, and we have a link on our website which has a list of the best ordinances we found. Also creating a checklist which says everything you need to get a permit, which is a boilerplate practice for many building departments already. And we need to make sure that you're streamlined on paper, but you're also streamlined in practice. So behind the counter, all of these processes are being implemented, and ensuring that the planning department is removed as much as possible from their review. Again, it should be about health and safety focused on the building department. Next slide, please. So that's our presentation here today. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all. My name is Kylan Rathjen. Happy to talk to you, about permit streamlining, any questions you might have, how to get you to green. And Tyson, who leads our team, is also available to talk. Feel free to subscribe to our newsletter, The Plug and the Nozzle, to learn about all of the zero emission vehicle activities happening at the governor's office and to learn about permit streamlining across California. So thank you so much for the time and looking forward to answering your questions. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Kylan. Jesse, you're up next.
All right, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Terrific. So my name is Jessie Denver. I'm the Distributed Energy Resources Program Manager at East Bay Community Energy. And I'm going to talk today about our coordination with our partner local governments and that coordination extending to Kylan and the GO-Biz team to get everyone streamlined as quickly as possible and what the drivers for that were. Next slide. So Kylan already outlined what CALeVIP is, and essentially it's an investment by the California Energy Commission into a region or county to fill the gap that exists in that area for electric vehicle charging infrastructure. And I'll get into that a little bit more in a sec, and how the CEC determines where those gaps are and how much of that gap needs to be filled with their investment. And as Kylan outlined, the intent of CALeVIP is to help meet the state's ZEV and charging infrastructure goals. And through CALeVIP, although the California Energy Commission is bringing investment into a specific area, they do require a co-funding partner or partners to consider making that investment in a specific calendar year. So EBCE has been working with the California Energy Commission for almost a year now. I think we started in May of 2019, indicating our strong interest in bringing a CALeVIP program to Alameda County. And I just want to make note quickly that EBCE serves all but one city in Alameda County, and that's the city of Alameda. They have their own municipal utility. And we are expanding our service territory with the addition of the city of Tracy later this year. And that crosses county boundaries into San Joaquin County. San Joaquin County already has a CALeVIP program going, so that's why the focus of this conversation does not include coordination with the city of Tracy and is focused on communities in Alameda County. Next slide, please. All right, so as Kylan outlined, the state, Governor Brown issued an executive order that set very clear goals for zero emission vehicle adoption by drivers, and goals associated with charging infrastructure. So what we're looking at by 2025 is 1.5 million zero emission vehicles on the road and 250,000 EV chargers. In Alameda County, to meet the goals of the state, essentially right now we have 35,000 zero emission vehicles. So that's plug-in hybrids, battery electric vehicles, and fuel cell electric vehicles, of which there are not that many, registered to drivers throughout the county. In order to meet the state's 2025 ZEV goals, that number will need to increase to at least 60,000 ZEVs on the road, so essentially almost doubling what we have today. And then by 2030, to meet the 5 million ZEV goal, EBCE is working to achieve 200,000 light, medium, and heavy-duty electric vehicles on the road. Next slide, please. So we have a lot of work to do in a pretty short amount of time. And that's why this investment by the California Energy Commission through CALeVIP is so incredibly important. Currently in the governor's proposed budget for this next fiscal year, there's about $50 million for CALeVIP. And Kylan noted the 3 to 4 regions that are being considered for 2021 funding. And this is a non-competitive consideration. The three kind of primary factors that go into the CEC selection for investment include how big is the gap, and I'll talk about that on the following slide. They use a tool that was co-developed with the National Renewable Energy Lab called EVI Pro to determine the gap and need for charging infrastructure in a specific geographic area. The kind of co-funding partnership that's been brought to the table that would pair with CEC investment. And for our project, EBCE is the sole co-funding partner. And then AB 1236 compliance. And as Kylan noted, this is really important because for 2021 projects, this is the first time that the CECs required that any stakeholder seeking to apply for EV charging infrastructure incentives in a particular program area, that city where the project is going to be installed must be in compliance with AB 1236 for a stakeholder like an EV charging network company or an apartment building owner or a city themselves to apply for the incentives for the charging infrastructure. If your city or county is not in compliance, it is generally understood that you won't have access to the incentive funds. So this new requirement really got EBCE moving to work with all of our stakeholders to provide technical assistance and help get them into a compliance. Next slide, please. All right, so identifying the gap. Again, the CEC uses the EVI Pro tool to evaluate how much charging infrastructure is installed and how much is needed to meet the state's 2025 goal. So what you see here is the number of charging ports that are installed in Alameda County under different use cases. And what we're not talking about is single family homes. Again, CALeVIP does not fund charging infrastructure in single family homes. They fund charging infrastructure that gets deployed in multifamily buildings and that's publicly available via either workplaces or publicly available level 2 or DC fast chargers. So today in Alameda County, you can see that we have a pretty significant gap in the availability of charging infrastructure. And CALeVIP investment usually funds the low-end gap for this need. And when I say they fund the low-end gap, the CEC specifically funds 30% of the low-end gap for DC fast chargers and 50% of the low-end gap for level 2 chargers. So that's why it's so important to bring in a co-funding partner to amplify impact and be able to leverage these funds to be able to fill more of that gap. And under CALeVIP, there are some very specific eligibility requirements around the type of building or the type of location that can install charging infrastructure. And I've just given you a few bullet point examples there, but you can always look at the CALeVIP website and look at their pillar requirements to see very specifically what type of sites are eligible for those incentive dollars. Next slide, please. Thanks. So following on the previous slide and that chart that you saw, essentially if you combine workplace and public level 2 charging, we need in Alameda County about 6,400 plus EBCE. We have about 1,200 currently, so our low gap is quite significant. And if the CEC investment funded 50% of our level 2 low end gap, essentially we would be able to deploy about 2,600 level 2 chargers just with CEC investment if they decided to fund us, meaning Alameda County, at that investment level. Multifamily is exponential. We kind of need a lot, and the EVI Pro tool doesn't specifically note exactly how many multifamily chargers are needed because it's needed ubiquitously. Public DC fast chargers, the low-end gap, we need at least 645 in Alameda County. We currently have about 244. So we have again, a significant gap. And if the CEC investment was 30% of that gap, what we have there then is 145 fast chargers that would be deployed. So again, EBCE's co-funding essentially doubles the impact and closes more of the gap. And we have allocated funding, and we just recently had that approved by our board for incentives. We are committing $14.5 million for incentives over the next 4 years should the CEC choose to fund the Alameda County CALeVIP program. And then EBCE also has a carve out of an additional $1.5 million that we will allocate to EBCE owning some DC fast charging. Next slide. All right, so again, here we are with the more detailed numbers. So we're hoping for a CEC investment of at least 1-to-1. We submitted a letter of request last year to the CEC requesting somewhere between $15 and $33 million of investment. Again, remember they only have $50 million total for 2021 to split among programs they're considering. And again, these are our commitments. We initially committed 16 million, but again, we have changed that to 14.5 million for incentives. And then we have another allocation because we'd like to start owning some charging infrastructure. So there's multiple benefits here. You know, as a joint power authority of Alameda County, with each of our cities being members of the Joint Power Authority, as well as the county itself, you know, our mandate is to help our local government partners achieve their air quality, human health, and climate goals. This program also very much aligns with, for example, our Metropolitan Transportation Commission's goals through the Bay Area, Plan Bay Area 2040, and also regional freight transportation electrification goals, especially focused on urban delivery and medium duty delivery, of which, you know, level 2 can be accessed by those fleets through this opportunity. This is a one-time opportunity for Alameda County to really be able to leverage the CEC investment. We, of course, don't know if the CEC will be making these kind of investments in future years. So fingers crossed that everything continues to move forward through the budget process that's happening right now. And this represents an enormous economic development opportunity. We don't actually have any sort of quantified numbers on how many jobs will be created, but these are good paying, high quality jobs that are associated with upgraded electrical infrastructure, the design and engineering of charging infrastructure, ongoing operation and maintenance jobs, as well as customer service. And this is an incredible load and growth revenue growth opportunity for EBCE. Next slide, please. So here's some quick numbers around, you know, why EBC is going so big on this and why we're committed to transportation electrification. What you see here is some of our growth rate goals for zero emission vehicle adoption, and the then equivalent GHG emission reductions associated with bringing on those new vehicles. And, you know, this is based on EBCE's electricity portfolio mix, which of course is very low carbon. And we also have 100% renewable energy products in addition to our carbon-free products. And you can see the load growth. So from an investment perspective, you know, investing in our community and kickstarting deployment of charging infrastructure in Alameda County is a great growth opportunity, not just for the county and jobs, as not just a great opportunity to clean the air, especially in areas that are along our interstate corridors and our most vulnerable communities, but it's also a great opportunity for EBCE to generate that revenue and then be able to turn that back around into additional beneficial programs for our community. Next slide, please. All right, so then the last kind of variable that the CEC looks at, in addition to the need and the gaps, the co-funding partner themselves, and then this third variable is the compliance with AB 32. So when we started working with the CEC, and they noted that AB 1236 compliance would be required for 2021 projects, we jumped into action. So, and this is really because what the CEC has seen throughout the state is that although CALeVIP projects have been running for a couple years, actually getting the infrastructure installed is taking longer than anticipated. And that's because communities have not become in compliance with AB 1236 when they were supposed to a few years ago. And so because there's this disjointed permitting process that industry has to deal with across California, it's caused delays. So to really accelerate deployment of charging infrastructure, this is why 2021 CALeVIP projects need to work to get everyone into compliance. Next slide, please. So the goal here of getting everyone into compliance is really to, sorry, I misspelled barriers there, eliminate barriers to getting the charging infrastructure in the ground and reducing soft costs. So this is new data from the California Energy Commission on what the average cost of level 2 and DC fast chargers has been through other CALeVIP projects. So one, this is amazing new information, and I encourage everyone to go check it out. The CEC is also following that up with a more formalized tracking database on costs. So stay tuned for that. But you can see here, there's a lot of kind of other average additional costs that, you know, are tied up in some of these soft costs that are related to permitting. So again, EBCE is a 15-member joint power authority, and our first step was to evaluate countywide who of all of our member cities were in compliance. And what we found was that Berkeley and Fremont were in compliance. So we took both their ordinance and checklist and used those as examples. Next slide, please. And then we did outreach to our technical advisory group, that we're a part of, and that's managed by a nonprofit organization called Stop Waste. And we met with all the TAG members and, you know, said what we were doing with CALeVIP and that we needed to get everyone into compliance. We provided the information on Fremont and Berkeley's best practices, and then established a relationship with GO-Biz to help each of our member communities coordinate what needed to happen. And so we really, through this technical assistance that we offered, helped with the review and approval of the ordinances and checklists that were being developed, and also helped where there were situations that would make it difficult for cities to move forward with some of the required measures. Kylan's team has been great in actually helping to adapt some exceptions that meet the intent of AB 1236 and have been approved. Just worth noting real quick is that we also coordinated with Alameda's municipal utility, and although they are the city of Alameda, sorry, which is our only community in Alameda County that is not a member of EBCE. And we did that because CEC investment dollars through CALeVIP are available countywide. So we wanted to lend that help to our neighbor load serving entity for the city of Alameda as well. So you can see here on the map, we only have 3 communities that are outstanding. So Pleasanton is streamlining in process, and their checklist should be coming pretty soon. Way up north, you see above Oakland a little red block, and not the big red block, the little red block. And that is the small city of Albany. They do have a pathway to compliance. It's just a matter of getting the item on their council agenda again. And then the city of Newark has just recently opted into the Joint Power Authority of EBCE. And so we will be providing that technical assistance to them as well. And you can see that red block down by Fremont. But other than these 3 communities, these small communities, the entirety of Alameda County is otherwise streamlined. Next slide, please. All right, so here's our timeline for next steps around CALeVIP. And we were really excited to get this far with streamlining because we wanted to do so by the kind of pencils down May 2020 deadline, which is today. So we have all of our draft documents to the CEC team. As I mentioned, our board last week and our community advisory committee voted unanimously to approve the co-funding commitments for incentives that I noted earlier. Then it's anticipated that the CEC will select 2021 projects in the June-July timeframe. This is, of course, tentative and may be pushed to August or September based on the COVID impacts to state budget review and approvals. And then if those projects are selected, there will be public workshops and comment periods around kind of the pillar requirements for each of those projects. And those should, again, based on potential delays, be maybe August and into the early fall. And then programs would launch. Next slide. So we're really excited to have been able to help our partners and are more than happy to connect with folks that might be on the line and to talk more about our coordination with Kylan's team and our local government partners, if that's of help. So I look forward to answering any of your questions and turn it back over to the CalCCA team.
Hey, thank you so much, Jesse and Kylan. Before we begin the Q&A, I just wanted to provide a quick snapshot of the CCAs that have pledged to partner with CALeVIP. And many are collaborating with regional air districts and other local agencies on these projects. And as noted, Jesse noted, the CEC is expected to select the 2021 projects later this year, summer or potentially fall. So with that, I think we can start the Q&A. There are some questions typed in, and I will go to those. The first one is, I think this one was probably for Jesse. How are CCAs well suited for facilitating EV permitting, streamlining in California cities and counties?
Again, because CCAs like EBCE are not-for-profit public agencies, you know, we are a joint power authority of Alameda County, and the joint power authority is made up of each of our local government partners who have opted into the JPA. We're well suited because we have that direct line of coordination. We serve all residential, commercial, industrial, and public entity electricity customers. And our mandate is to help our local government partners achieve their goals throughout each of their communities. So that direct line of coordination is very simple. And, you know, because we are a step removed from the day-to-day individual city or county level of activities, meaning, you know, our colleagues' day-to-day job responsibilities, we're able to help coordinate some of these other kinds of things that need to get done on their behalf. So I see us being well suited, not only from that perspective and helping to advance initiatives, but also, to help fund the initiatives, because we are a not-for-profit public agency that generates revenue from the sale of electricity. We turn that revenue back around to, of course, cover our own overhead, but then to take whatever's left and turn it into these local programs that, again, help to achieve our partners' climate, economic, human health, and air quality.
Okay, thank you, Jesse.
Also, if I could jump on that.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, of course. Yeah. So we've, again, had a great working relationship with East Bay Community Energy, but typically throughout the state, we'll, speak on a webinar, we'll give a talk at a community, and we'll, reach out to a particular building department, and we'll at a piecemeal level help streamline the state. So we'll have one community streamline at a time. But we've seen that the best way to streamline an entire region is to partner with a local group that has deep ties in that community. So we've found it much more successful to have a regional partner work with us and keep track of, local ordinances, talk to the partners they have in their region to streamline their entire area. So East Bay Community Energy represents a great example we would love to replicate statewide, of being able to go deep into a particular community versus just doing it on a piecemeal city by city level.
Great, thank you, Kylan. This one I think is probably for you. How much data does GO-Biz have about the job creation potential of EV infrastructure development? Can you share this data?
Sure. So it's difficult to get like key facts on a lot of information on zero emission vehicle job development, but we do have some. I know the LA EDC has a great report that came out that talks about how many jobs work in the zero emission vehicle space. And one initiative we're working on now is we're in the process of developing the zero emission vehicle market development framework. It's really going to be the state's master plan for zero emission vehicle market development going forward. If you're familiar, in the Brown administration, we had a ZEV action plan, which, the real question was, when Jerry Brown was governor, can there be a ZEV market? And the answer was yes. And the ZEV market, the ZEV action plan helped, coordinate those efforts. Now with the Newsom administration, the question is, can that market be scaled? Can it be made bigger? So as a part of this efforts, we're going to be cataloging a lot of great statistics on our website about, GHG reductions and also job creation. So we're going to have that, planning document available in the coming months, and, we get stakeholder feedback, but as a part of that, we're going to be talking about job information. So we'll be able to share that, and I can connect with you offline and share with you what data we do have.
Great, thank you, Kylan. This could actually be for either of you. If our CCA is applying to the CALeVIP program too, are we in competition for the same dollars?
I'll take this. So it's not a competition. The CEC budgets a certain amount of funding for each year. So for 2021, the proposed budget is about $50 million. And then they identify, a handful of projects, potential projects that they are seeking to fund out of that budget. So it's up to the CEC to determine how they allocate those funds across the projects that they're considering for funding. So it could be that EBCE will receive X amount of dollars from the CEC, and they will then opt to fund Y amount of dollars for another project, and then another amount of funding out of that $50 million for yet another project. But that's all up to the CEC, and those are the decisions that they were going to be making in the June-July timeframe. Again, I don't know if those decisions will be pushed out a bit because of our current kind of issues around the budget. So stay tuned via the CALeVIP website that the CEC and their program partner Center for Sustainable Energy manage.
Yeah, and this is Kyle, and I can jump in on that point. So yeah, but it really brings home the point of like, you are most competitive to receive CEC funding if you streamline. So yeah, we're not trying to get at the idea that it's competition, but to best position your region to receive funding, you should work to streamline every jurisdiction. So, and beyond CALeVIP, it's great for those communities, but it definitely makes you a more competitive applicant if you work with your cities and counties.
Okay. This is a general question. I'm not sure which slide it refers to, but how much of the non-charger costs do permitting costs represent? And it's referring to something that was on one of the slides.
Sure. So it varies tremendously on the level of charger because the site. In certain situations it's difficult to talk about charging estimates because of the trenching of building a charger has a lot to do with if you're connected to existing power. How far you are from substations, transformers. Where the electrical equipment is, how difficult it is to install new wiring. So there's a lot of variation. But permitting, why that's significant is there's a lot of variation in how much that can cost. Like, it's going to be expensive to install equipment. That equipment costs can come down the scale once we build out the ZEV market, nationwide. But the difference between getting a permit in a week versus a year, that can be done today. It doesn't require a lot and it substantially affects costs. So I would look to the Rocky Mountain Institute study if you want more information on cost. And I know the ICT has a lot of great data on like the cost of charging versus level 2 DC fast charger, if it's network connected. So I'm happy to send over, or whoever said this question, send over some reports. But the main idea we're trying to get across here is permitting is a very easy way to bring down the costs of charging these of stations. It's much harder in other areas. If you're going to dig a hole in the ground, that's going to cost a certain amount. But if we can do permitting well, we can save money.
Okay, here's a LA County specific question. Since LA County hosts 25% of the state's population, will the state consider a future application for funding from it unless it already has received 25% of funding, which is highly doubtful?
So there is a program that is running in Southern California, a CALeVIP project. I know that our colleagues at the mayor's office in Los Angeles, we've recently talked about EBCE's work on CALeVIP in preparation for potential funding in 2021. And they've indicated that they've considered funding, pursuing a similar pathway in future years. So if they did that, of course, they would do that in partnership likely with LADWP. And as you might or might not know, LADWP already has a pretty robust charging infrastructure project underway where they are deploying charging infrastructure via their own funding, and maybe they have some incentives available as well. But it's definitely on our colleagues' mind, but I can't speak specifically to Los Angeles County and their plans or coordination with the CEC in more detail.
Yeah, I will note, and you probably saw this, but Clean Power Alliance serves LA County, and it is one of the 2021 applicants. So maybe some of that will be covered in their application. I'm going to ask this question just because it sounds like a cool idea that I hadn't heard about. What about consideration of mobile charging stations that are maintained in a corral and then sent to a parking stall as needed? Is anyone doing anything like that?
For specific CALeVIP questions, I would definitely reach out to Brian Fauble from the Energy Commission. But I know Envision Solar, and there's organizations out there that are developing mobile charging solutions, which are really exciting. So they're out there, and it's definitely something to bring up in conversations with Energy Commission going forward, but I'm not aware of how that fits in with their current existing planning efforts.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
I'll add that there are other incentive programs that cover mobile charging, like FreeWire's Mobi, and those can be found via CalSTART. CalSTART administers those incentive programs where that kind of charging infrastructure can be incentivized right now.
Nice. Okay, last question. What types of interconnection are you seeing? Are the EV chargers behind retail meters, or are you seeing any EV charging arrays behind a wholesale meter?
I mean, these are generally, projects that are behind the meter on the customer side of the meter. DC fast chargers, sometimes they have a standalone meter and are sited at a retail location or some other eligible public charging site. Or they are, sub-metered under a master meter at, again, a site host. We're not talking specifically about like on a wholesale side of things. That is something EBCE is thinking about, especially on medium and heavy duty vehicle electrification, which heavy duty is not covered by CALeVIP. Other incentive projects cover that, but not necessarily for the kind of wholesale configuration that you're asking about.
Okay, well, with that, we have some other questions here, and my apologies for not getting to all of them. But, hopefully we can have another webinar in the future on this topic. Just some final items here. A recording of the webinar will be posted on the CalCCA website at cal-cca.org. on the webinars page, where you can also find information about upcoming community energy innovation webinars, which take place on the last Friday of the month. Next month's topic is accelerating decarbonization and local investment through better data access, and will include speakers from Silicon Valley Clean Energy and Utility API. To find out more information on CCA EV initiatives and other programs, you can go to the CCA programs page on the CalCCA website. Just click on the electric vehicles tab and you'll see a drop-down menu with links to CCA info resources. We appreciate you spending your time with us today. If you would like additional information or have follow-up questions, you can reach me through Leora at cal-cca.org. Stay well, everyone.